Pokémon Infinite Fusion is a fan game that needs no introduction. So I won't. So the date is December 21st, 2024, winter solstice and 12-year anniversary of the end of the world. I got a ping from the Pokémon Infinite Fusion Discord that I was still in for some reason, even though I've only been there once all year. Oh hey, a new version's out. That's cool. I take one good look at the patch notes. You ever accidentally bite in your mouth in a weird way? And you just have that sense of dread because you know there's going to be an ulcer there for the next 2 weeks. Act 1. Somehow the AI use is the least fucked thing here. So first off, I'm pissed off about this personally because I'm a member of the Pokemon fan game community, which you wouldn't know from my videos because I guess I just forgot to bring that up. Hi, this video is going to be a bit more personal than normal. Not like staring into the camera in the thumbnail and having a title like The Situation personal, but a little personal. A little personal. Anyway, why would you do this? Who asked for this? Okay, let's take a step back. To state the extremely obvious, Pokémon Infinite Fusion is a Pokémon fan game about fusing Pokémon together. Remember what I said about how it needs no introduction? I lied. It turns out that's really useful for a script explaining how things went to shit. Started out as this little doohickey, automatically pasting the faces and colors of one Pokemon onto the other, and for some reason I assumed, wow, that's so cool, these sprites totally don't look like dog shit and look very real. I wonder how you do that in-game, only to discover that you can't and that I was a stupid 7-year-old at the time. A developer who went by Chartup decided, hey, let's make that into an actual game. And then it exploded in popularity, because by then the sprites started looking like this, and started looking like this. They're even unique designs for Pokemon when fused with themselves. This is all thanks to hard work done by the Pokemon Infinite Fusion communities, thousands of really damn good pixel artists. Now, since this is obviously a Pokemon game, there's also a Pokedex attached, even though you will never fill it out because there are a billion of these things. All of these Pokedex entries, you just take half of one dex entry, half of another, replace the name with whatever the Pokemon's named, and boom, you got a dex entry. It's not like these bland dex entries really matter. There are fucking 1,012 of them. You're never gonna see them all, and even then, you're only gonna see them for a split second. So it's really just filler text. But one day though, the Pokemon Infinite Fusion devs decided to change that since they already had a whole thing about custom sprite submissions, so they decided to do that with the dex entries. And then a bit later, they just did this, and it's certainly an interesting choice. It's certainly a creative thing to think is a good idea. For obvious reasons, this sparked a lot of controversy because it was a stupid fucking idea. You already had a method of auto-generating them. Why would you incorporate AI to do the work that you've literally already done? Especially since it's just designed to eventually be replaced. Now, large language models do have their occasional use cases. I never use it for those use cases because I'm a petty bitch first and foremost, but there definitely are use cases. This is not one of them, and I am so fucking confused. And it's also just a little tasteless to use generated content for your art project worked on by a server full of artists and writers completely against their wishes without even asking first. Especially since you're using it to replace 240,000 lines of text. That's a signal that you're apparently very comfortable with doing something like that and might do something like that again. And it's not like this was to scam investors like it is with every other Gen AI project in existence. It's a Pokemon fan game. Why would you do this? Okay, so the next day, after people were rightfully pissed off about this completely unnecessary disregard, Chartup posted a statement in announcements titled, about the AI-generated dex entries, and it follows as such. So the inclusion of AI-generated Pokedex descriptions has sparked a lot of controversy on Discord. I understand why some of you are concerned about that feature, so I want to share some context and explain what this feature is exactly. From very early on in the game's development, fusions have had Pokedex entries that were blah blah blah, I already explained this. This sometimes made funny combinations, but also led to broken grammar and a lack of variety. The new system is just a sophisticated version of this. Oh, okay. Suddenly I understand everything. You did it because you wanted a better placeholder system. Now, as someone who's always working on 10,000 projects at once, of which like 3 will probably ever get made, and all of which are elaborate fan works that I likely won't be able to make bank off of, I also suffer from what's known as terminal perfectionism, to the point where I had to re-record this line multiple times because I fucked it up so bad. So maybe that's what's going on here? Let's use that explanation because it's the closest thing to a coherent thought process I can wrangle out of this. It takes the official entries of both Pokémon and feeds into an LLM to mash them together in a similar fashion, but in a way that flows better. The only information the LLM receives to generate these are the official Pokédex entries of both Pokémon. No custom entries were used in this process. AI-generated entries are in dark blue in-game, while custom-made entries are green in order to differentiate them. Okay, that almost sounds sensible, even though that's absolutely not how it works. It's not like an AI upscaled version of this, it's still AI-generated text. Just because it has some loose origins in the official Dex entries doesn't mean it's not. That's not how AI works. And as to why you would want an LLM to quote-unquote mash them together, is, as I have stated several times now, still beyond me. Also, the difference between the alleged dark blue and green colors is barely noticeable, because it's just in the shadows. The entries have all been pre-generated and are simply loaded in the game from a text file. The environmental impact of generating every single one of them was about as much as a few gaming sessions from a high-end PC. Okay, that's a very non-specific comparison, but it is actually, seemingly, true. According to this article, one ChatGPT search uses 2.9 watt-hours, which makes about 700 kilowatt-hours in total. It's also not remotely related to any of the actual reasons why people are angry, and still raises the question, okay, why did you waste 700 kilowatt-hours on something that nobody asked for? Then he goes on to say some Captain Obvious stuff, some stuff I already mentioned before, and then says, our stance on AI remains the same as it has always been. We want to encourage creativity, and we will never use AI for sprites or concept art, and human-made content will always be prioritized. We value our community greatly. Your contributions are what make Infinite Fusion what it is. Being not okay with AI for just sprites and concept art is an incredibly specific stance to not have backwards yourself into. Only the part about concept art is actually, like, relevant here, since it's not the PIF developers that make the sprites. Except for Kiwi. Kiwi made a lot of sprites, but you don't know who that is yet. That's for later. It also doesn't mention, you know, the other text in the game, ideas for the game, and arguably doesn't mention graphics outside of the Pokemon sprites. It just mentions those two things. You can't make a game out of sprites and concept art. I'm not saying they are using AI or will use AI for absolutely everything and not written here. This is a Discord post, we'll just retcon it when they change their mind. Then there are two images attached. One of them's of an old generated entry, and one of them's of a new one. Now the old one's pretty much what you'd expect, but the latter AI generated one goes as follows. The flame on its tail burns brighter as it absorbs sunlight, fueling the plant seed on its back. Charizard uses the energy stored within both to grow. Okay, ignoring the fact that if you think about the sentence too hard it starts to fall apart because it's Gen AI, remember the line about how this is apparently because the original system had grammatical errors? You know what would have probably been a good idea? To use an image that didn't have a grammatical error staring you right in the face? I know that's sort of a nitpick, but is that not the perfect reflection of how utterly fucking pointless this all is? But whatever. This is, again, just for placeholder text that you'll probably only be seeing for a split second. 240,000 lines of placeholder text, yes, but this game's focus isn't really on that. It's on the fusions, or more accurately, the sprites for the fusions. But if that's where the story ended, this video would not exist. Whatever your stance on the AI use here is, this pissed a lot of people off since, well, a lot of people tend to see Reddit just seeing the word AI, whether it makes sense or not. So you know it would be a shame if there was something else they did that was a lot worse, and a lot more tangible and clear-cut. Because if they did do that, Pokémon Infinite Fusion used AI would certainly be a good hook to disguise what you're actually talking about. I know that, because that's what I did to you, and I'm a manipulative bastard. But it's also kind of essential to this story. Act 2. Martin Luther's 95 Theses drops. I wasn't planning on posting today, but the Pokémon Infinite Fusion owner/dev just decided to use generative AI. To some people, this blatant disregard for the wishes of the artists working for PIF might seem surprising, so I felt like I should clear some stuff up. They've always been like this. The opening line to this Instagram post, of all things, sums it up better than I could. Just a Husk, also known as Husk, is a sprite artist, a really damn good one at that, who used to be a member of the Pokémon Infinite Fusion Discord until mid-2023 when they quit. This was due to a combination of both the following incident and also getting banned for a month for reasons that weren't justified in the slightest. They said that enough was enough and that this was a golden opportunity to expose some details about this whole mess of a situation that barely anybody knew or cared about, presumably because it was a lot easier to reframe or interpret this as just some Discord drama before they went mask off with the AI usage and pissed everyone off. I will now recount the details of what happened based on this post and the testimonies of Reza, also known as M&M Lover, a former sprite manager who I talked to on Discord, because they happen to be on the EV Expo Discord server, which is where I found out about this whole mess to begin with, since I don't use social media. I don't get why people use social media. I think it's one of those, like, mass hysteria things, like the Sherlock fandom. And that's why I decided to make this video, because Dev Discussion was imploding about it. Anyway, you're in for a fucking ride. So, the real story that this video is actually about started in early 2023, when a user named Rush6510 got into an argument with the staff over some quote-unquote not well thought out decisions. The post doesn't go into detail about this, but according to Reza, Rush was apparently a bit hot-headed and got into a bunch of arguments because it's a Discord server. Whatever happened, the final argument resulted in him getting banned. He also made around 200 fucking sprites for the game. Then he requested that his sprites be removed from the game, which, even if his argument might not have been reasonable, whatever it was reasonable for him to ask to have his sprites back. And there was a post in the Sprite Errors channel explicitly stating that you could request your sprites back. So the sprite managers voted as to whether or not they will remove the sprites, in spite of the thing that said that they had to. In Reza's words, at the time it was justified by the fact that in the sprite gallery channel, there was a tiny piece of text in the description of the channel that nobody ever reads, that said, by submitting here, you give permission for this to be used in IF, even though there was already a thing stating that you could remove the sprites if you wanted to. I'm assuming that someone, somewhere along the line realized, wait, we literally have this thing here, and realized that deliberately ignoring the rules was probably a bad look, and they decided that a better look would be fucking changing them. Meet the Spriters Agreement, a posting the terms and conditions that you automatically agree to when you post a sprite, by Kiwi Kelly, another Pokemon Infinite Fusion developer, and a member of their Discord staff. According to the accounts of Ziaffer, another person I spoke to for this, Kiwi Kelly is essentially Chardub's right hand. Anyway, the Spriters Agreement released after Rush got banned, and not just after, it was created in response. This is the line about sprite deletion. You may request some of your sprites be removed from the game. This may be refused in certain circumstances at the discretion of the sprite managers, e.g., removing hundreds of sprites is not a reasonable request. Each case will be evaluated individually. So they literally changed the fucking rules on purpose, and then used the reason that they changed the rules on purpose as an example of a reason that they could deny your request. Which also literally says, we can say no for any reason we want, by the way. So, there's a term for what they're doing here. This is a form of art theft. Not in the sense of, like, reposting art without credit. They are credited in the same color text as the background, but it's still technically credit. But in the sense that, well, what they're doing is effectively just a more convoluted way of stealing. And I'm not pulling this accusation out of thin air. That's what the affected artists are calling it. That's the term they're using, so that's the term I'm gonna use. Even if you don't agree this counts as art theft, it's still obviously wrong. And I'm not gonna coin my own term for this, like, scrung notion or some shit, which I almost did in an earlier version of this script before my editor, the half of me that isn't constantly shitposting, informed me that I shouldn't. Thanks me, you narc. But yeah, I shouldn't have to make it obvious why this is a shitty thing to do. When no one was looking, the Pokemon Infinite Fusion devs stole 200 sprites. That's as many as 20 tens. And that's terrible. But seriously, that's fucking vile! Anyway, back to the Spriters Agreement again. Do you notice something with the phrasing of this? It's subtle, but it's the bit that says, each case will be evaluated individually. Translation, this is all done manually, even though we could just do this automatically, which we already do for the sprite addition process. And again, this is all posted after Rush was banned. They didn't agree to this, because it did not exist when they could agree to it. This is not even a legally binding contract. You can't give a legally binding contract when you're doing a fan work. This is a directed middle finger with artificial legalese flavoring. It was literally promised that he could remove his sprites at any time. He requested his sprites to be removed, and they changed the rules so they could deny him. And let's be honest, even if they were somehow in the right for this, terms and conditions are all a scam anyway. It's just a way for corporations to get away with screwing you over because you didn't read 10,000 words of dense legalese. Forgot to read the one bit where it says "be on your soul." The fact that they are trying to do that for a fan project, with all due respect, what the fuck are you doing? That's like if you had to sign a waiver before submitting suggestions to fucking cool a new webcomic. Trying to be this opaque and corporate about something that you can't even make money off of. That's not an atmosphere you should be bringing into a fan project. I should stress this. This is a fan project. For fans. Okay, so that's one incident, with around 200 instances of art theft alone. Now, 200 might sound like a lot, but you haven't seen anything yet, because in the immortal words of the late great Sweet Bro, it keeps happening. At some point after this, apparently unrelated, Scrappy, another forum member, who's apparently really toxic, asked for his sprites to be removed through Reza. He got denied because the agreement that he couldn't see or agree to because he got banned so long ago that Reza phrases it as forever ago, said that he couldn't. Again, just because he was toxic doesn't mean he doesn't deserve to have his goddamn sprites back. Then for some reason, Reza can't figure this one out either, but Husk posted a screenshot of Scrappy talking shit about someone at some point. A single screenshot. Unfortunately, this violated Rule 20, which is a rule about speaking about banned members. Okay, but whatever. It's just one screenshot, and I don't even have to finish that sentence. This is what got them banned! This is obviously completely unreasonable. Part of me suspected the reason they got banned to begin with was just because Scrappy was one of the people rightfully asking for their goddamn sprites back, but I can't prove anything on that front. Also, Husk couldn't get any of their sprites removed either when they asked. And then I mentioned that all of these people also had a fuck ton of sprites. Husk had 174 in total, and Scrappy had 406. And they weren't being removed, even though they could just do that automatically if they wanted to. Husk themselves had said it would be easy if they cared. They know their shit. So then Reza decided, fuck it, I'm gonna do it myself. I'm gonna remove the sprites. And then, but Chargedup just refused to let them do that. Which is more than a little bit absolutely fucking bonkers. We'll get to Chardup's reason for doing this later, because that's just really the cherry on top. My voice is cracking a lot. Have you noticed that? My voice is cracking a lot. That's how you know I'm angry. And also then they got banned! Not because of that, but at this point would that have surprised you? Reza had posted these two screenshots, which they obtained from other staff members since they quit being a sprite manager by that point, due to aforementioned thing, showing clear as crystal that Kiwi was doing this solely out of spite. Reza got banned, and they wanted their sprites back, and they didn't get their sprites back. They had 178 sprites. That's starting to sound like a small number. It's not a small number. All the stuff I mentioned was just the stuff that led to Reza getting banned. Guess how much all of this totals up to? 1,000 total sprites between them. Yeah, that's a lot. 1,000 is a lot. Oh, sorry, did I say 1,000? Sorry, I must have misspoken, because according to Reza, I meant 3! Because there are other artists who aren't the big 4 here. 3,000 sprites whose artists have explicitly stated their non-consent that they will not take out of the game for bullshit reasons. 3,000 instances of art theft. And that's just the ones we know of. So as mentioned before, after the AI incident, Husk decided to blow the whistle on this. Not like all of it, but a good amount. Now unfortunately this post only got about 500-ish likes and didn't really get anywhere on Instagram, because on what remains of Twitter, it was shared by another user, Ari, the lead developer of Pokemon Vanguard, leading to 600,000 views. I don't know how many users are still using Twitter, but in the Just World that would be 30,000 times the size of the entire site, and also that number is probably wrong because I'm pretty sure views are bullshit there. As mentioned before, since I've ascended beyond the need for social media, my first exposure to this was the dev discussion channel imploding on the EV Expo Discord server. All of this would have just been completely under the radar, just another passive, oh damn. Anyway, if they hadn't already agitated almost the entire fan base by pinging everyone interested in the game's updates that you're adding generative AI, which is probably half the fucking server. Seriously, why would you? Again, thank you to Just a Husk for this legendary write-up, and thank you to Reza for answering my questions. Never in my life did I think I'd be using a goddamn Instagram post as a primary source. Now thankfully, this would end up leading into some positive developments. And by positive, I mean almost positive. And by almost positive, I mean negative. You see, the AI dex entries were removed. And Chardub used this opportunity to fucking lie to people. Act 3, the alleged response. So, because of this post, Chardub decided to write an overly dramatic apology video script in the announcements channel, didn't acknowledge the 3,000 stolen sprites, and instead made it all about the AI Pokédex entries. So, Chardub's second attempt at opaque corporate PR on this mess goes as follows. I have taken the decision to remove auto-generated Pokédex entries from the game. This represents several dozens of hours of work down the drain for a feature that was only meant to make the experience more immersive for players. Unfortunately, a vocal minority of members of the community, many of whom have never played the game, are tearing the community apart over this feature. Oh, okay, so you're just lying then. They're not tearing the community apart for this feature. The community didn't do this. The community didn't develop the game. Only 2 people did. You and Kiwi, and you're the one who definitely put it in, because you're the only programmer. The community didn't vote for this, because they found that this was even an idea you would think of, because you pinged half the server. He's immediately pivoting to attacking the people who are mad about what he did, for being mad about what he did. Infinite Fusion has always been about the community first. And as much as it pains me to penalize players for this, and to compromise my vision for the game, the community is more important. Oh, the community is more important? Well, that's odd, because according to you, you're not listening to a majority of them. You think that would be important when focusing on the community, since you clearly have proof this is a vocal minority, right? You wouldn't say it was a vocal minority if you didn't know it was a vocal minority, right? And the tone here is so passive, too. As much as it pains me, who says that in real life? It was your decision to take it out, not the community's. Quit pretending you don't have agency when your agency is what got you into this mess to begin with. The only reason you would cite a vocal minority and claim that you're listening to them for the sake of the community is if you wanted to deflect off of yourself. And a lot of that backlash wasn't just for the AI use, it was for the 3,000 instances of art theft. Why is the community suddenly less important when it comes to the sprites? He also mentioned that he's working on an automated system to get sprites removed, which is actually good. Maybe. Well, we'll get to the situation on that later, because it's interesting. It's also interesting that this is the closest he gets to acknowledging the more important controversy, because he's not. Because 3,000 instances of art theft is a lot more cut and dry. And also, he's definitely creating this apology as a response to that post, because otherwise this line would not be relevant to the rest of it. And then he has the balls to finish it off with, "Sorry to everyone who actually liked the feature. May you have a less stressful holiday season than mine." Gotta love the emotional appeal at the end when you've been ignoring other people's emotions for so long, as well as the implication there were people that actually liked the feature. You're just replacing text nobody will read because it's a placeholder with more text nobody will read because it's a placeholder. Who sees that and goes, "Oh hell yes, that's what this game's always been missing"? But wait, there's more! You see, they didn't remove the AI-generated text entries by simply removing them. In Update 6.4.2, instead of just putting it back to the old method, like a sensible person, Chardub decided instead to replace it with this fucking message. Holy shit, this is so scummy. Now people who don't know the situation are going to see this and believe your bullshit side of the story. And also, it's in the fucking passive tone again. Due to community backlash, auto-generated Pokédex entries are no longer available. It doesn't mention AI, it doesn't mention the art theft, it doesn't mention anything. It just says it was magically taken out of the game because too many people were angry. And it's like that for 200,000 Pokemon. Again, it's just deflecting back onto the people who are angry for being angry, and now it's doing it in the fucking game itself. Thankfully, one update later, they actually managed to restore the old style dex entries. Why it took them 2 updates to do this is a question you definitely shouldn't be asking at all. Like look at this fucking changelog. They had no reason to do this other than to be petty. Holy shit. Honestly, I don't know if I'm pissed off or impressed. This takes balls. Clearly people saw past this excuse for an apology because they had to close the entire fucking Discord server. For 2 days and 17 hours, the Discord server was put into read-only, which they specifically deny being about silencing anyone. Which you know you can trust because it's a post on the Pokémon Infinite Fusion Discord and they have never lied about anything ever. Once it reopened, a member of staff that doesn't develop the game, Pori, gave a third PR response for the same incident, which is never a bad sign. He reassured the community that AI will not be in the game that he isn't making. He also apologized for the tone of Chardub's announcements that he didn't make. It then says, sorry, we should have realized that this would have pissed people off, which is actually taking accountability, I'll give them that. It's taking accountability for someone else, but it is taking accountability. Again, this is definitely Chardub's decision. He's the only programmer for the game. Pori's just a member of staff. His name's not even in the game's credits. And then it immediately goes on to cite a few individuals who operated in bad faith to fan the flames after saying this. That's one hell of a thing to put in this instance's third corporate PR statement for a goddamn Pokémon fan game. Buddy, you cannot be throwing out moves like that while you're in disadvantage. Now he's explicitly attacking specifically the people who rightfully reported the things that Chardub did. And you know what else is in bad faith? Attacking someone in your apology you wrote for someone else's actions. He then states that for some reason the sprite removal tool should take them around 3 months? What? Why would it take you that long to be able to remove sprites automatically? Is that because that's just about how long it takes people to stop caring? I'm not like an Omega Tech Genius super nerd, but you already have a thing that connects the Discord server to the sprite repository. The sprite repository has the data for the artist in every sprite. Why should it be taking you 3 months to develop Control F? Who's even developing this? Let's just take a minute to acknowledge the fact that this post even exists at all is sketchy as fuck. One of two things happened here. Chardub either told Pori to make this apology for him, or he made it of his own volition, and both of those things are bad. If it's the former, I don't even have to explain why that's bad, I already have. He's being forced to take accountability for Chardub. If he's not, then that's also bad because that means this bit's an empty promise, because he's not one of the programmers that worked on this game. And it also means that staff members apologizing for the actions of the lead developer is something that's apparently expected of them, which is shitty. That is ridiculously shitty. So after this, the discussion kind of chilled out on the server since it seemed like everyone got what they wanted. There are still problems, because if a spriter wants all of their sprites removed from the game, they also get blacklisted from all of the spriter channels and are unable to communicate with the rest of the spriter community directly. So that's cool. And Chardub and Kiwi Kelly both withdrew from the Discord server to some extent, with the former updating his username to say he's on an indefinite hiatus, which doesn't mean much since he doesn't really do all that much in the Discord itself, and the latter updating her username to say admint. Whatever that means. Let me be very clear about something. If you decide to directly harass the game devs of Pokémon Infinite Fusion because you found out about this through this video, and you really just want to hurt someone online, go fuck yourself. I'm not advocating for harassment here. That's for stupid dumb babies who are stupid and dumb, and I will put you in the hospital. I do genuinely hope Chardub and Kiwi Kelly learn how to be half-decent people someday, but today is not that day. I'm doing this because, one, as I said, I'm a member of the Pokemon fan game community and I'm pissed off about this. And two, there seems to be a lot of misconceptions floating around, unintentional or otherwise. A lot of folks seem to think the main thing here is Spirter's pulling out as a result of the AI thing, which is definitely a thing that's happening. Well, I'm willing to bet that most of the folk doing that only found out that's a thing you can even do, or could do rather, from this post. What I do recommend, if you just want to feel like you're doing something, play other fan games. Give them your attention, because there are some good-ass fan games that exist. A decent amount of people seem to think that fan games are all in the nebulous, edgy trash category, with like the exceptions of Pokemon Infinite Fusion and Pokorogue, and that's it, but that's not the case. And Nintendo's not going to strike you with the Nintendo brand orbital cannon just for thinking about Pokemon Uranium too hard for too long. Okay, well, maybe they would for the 4chan game, but you'd probably deserve it. Update. So while I was making this, I posted what was supposed to be an unlisted release candidate in a group chat I was in with various EV Expo members to get some last-minute feedback before the video went gold. And then, because she was trying to help me with the video, one of the creatures in the group chat apparently gave that to Totodile, who's one of the artists who pulled out, who then shared it to a Discord server with various Spriters, without asking either of us. And then Avid Clown, another artist who pulled out, they left a comment on that, and I'm just gonna read all of that to you because they let me, and also because they messaged me about all of this, which is very useful for the video, but also, oh my god, Totodile, that wasn't supposed to be shared in a Discord server. I'm also doing this because this video has taken way too much of my energy that was supposed to be put towards other things, like trying to get an actual job, or making things that aren't a Situationist Crazy video. There are like so many layers to this that I can't get into because that's beyond the scope of this video, and also beyond the effort I'm willing to put into this, because it's also the angle as to what's going on with the moderation team, which I'll just leave that to whoever wants to do it. I know long term I should probably ignore the B- is good enough instinct, but also this video would be 2 hours long, so no, I have a life to live. Anyway, Avid Clown had this to say when accidentally asked on the matter. Oh damn, hey Nova. Wasn't expecting a video like this out of anyone, but especially not from someone who isn't an active member of the project. I appreciate the coverage regardless, people need to know what happened. Anyways, my thoughts will follow. The AI usage sucks, but at least you went back on it. If nothing else, reverting the change has brought a lot of attention to the custom dex entry initiative. LLMs suck ass, and this was a poor use of it regardless, because we already had placeholder entries for the dex entries, and those didn't have spelling mistakes or missing punctuation. He also got rather whiny about removing it, shifting blame onto people who were against the change. Didn't handle things well at all. It was truly disappointing to see such a level of unprofessionalism towards the entirety of the artistic backbone behind the project. The blatant disregard for the fact that most artists are taking a stance against AI is unfortunate to say the least. While Chartup does occasionally make a sprite or two for the game, the 99.9% of the rest of the sprites are produced by everyone else who are doing it for free. Overall, it just sets up a nasty precedent on AI usage, especially because it's disregarding the fact that writing is viewed by many as art, which objectively goes against their stance on AI use. As for the sprite conditions, shit sucks. It's a massive agreement, and they don't own anything. It's not a release of mine or anyone else's art. Upon the AI being released into the wild, about a dozen spriters, including Reese, who made the loading screen, all decided to pull their sprites from the game. This was met with backlash from others who viewed it as betrayal or undeserved. Those who would rather stay the course and say the safe thing rather than actually take a stance against morally incorrect movement. Unfortunately, even amongst all of the chaos in the server, people who wanted to pull away from the project were catching flack for it, and this includes myself. I may be biased in saying this, but the spriter agreement is utter horseshit. I don't care if they got tens of thousands of sprites in the project. If someone wants their stuff removed from the public group project, they should not be denied that for any reason. The flat-out refusal of the team to acknowledge those who have been banned for reasons justifiable or not has resulted in art theft, which they continue to mask behind thinly veiled excuses of, no, but we have a spriter agreement that they are actually beholden to. This is not a paid project. We are not contracted for our work. Nobody owns it except for us. It is shocking how many people just go along with this. I do not think this can go on for much longer before it implodes in on itself. The complete lack of care towards the spriting community of the game during this whole fiasco has left a very sour taste in my mouth, and I've joined many others in removing my sprites from this game. We've all been given an ultimatum in doing so, and won't ever be allowed to contribute to the game in the future. This isn't a problem, I frankly would rather not have the option. However, we also lose access to many channels that non-spriters can freely view and participate in, such as the sprite feedback and discussion channels. So if you want to leave the project, but still want to help people improve their work, fucking sucks! You can't! This whole situation just infuriates me, and bless Pius, she's been trying her best to keep everything going during this shit show. I don't hope for the game's downfall, but I surely don't think this will just blow over like Chartup surely wants it to. So yeah. Now all of this kind of raises the question of why exactly there was all this fuss from the main developers about not wanting to remove the sprites. You'd think the more sensible, spiteful solution would be to remove them anyway. This all seems like it's so unnecessary. I still don't have a good explanation for the AI part, although I do think Chardub not having much respect for his artist was definitely a factor in whatever his thought process was, but I do have a good explanation for this. While I do not have a screenshot, according to both Husk and Rez's accounts, Chardub refused to let the latter remove the sprites himself for one simple reason. And I don't know if he realized this, but he accidentally said the quiet part so loud here that in the right atmospheric conditions you would have been able to hear it on the other side of the fucking Atlantic. Act 4. The game would look worse without them. Whenever you see footage of Pokemon Infinite Fusion, there are often only two things that you see. A fusion, and someone's face cam. It's very rare to actually see the game itself, so let's actually talk about that. The game that was made by Chardub and Kiwi Kelly that these sprites were made for to begin with. It's okay. It's decent. It's mostly just Kanto again, but with most of Johto and half of the Sephi Islands. The gameplay is probably its biggest plus, but that's mostly because it's the impossible to fuck up Pokemon formula again that you could get in almost any fan game. The early game is tedious and it's not very compelling, and there's a relatively low selection of Pokemon, which you think you would want in a game with fusions, especially early on. That is, unless you talk to Brock here and go to this unmarked place in Route 1, which the game never tells you about, and if you don't do this and you beat Gym 1, it's permanently missable, and it doesn't tell you that either, which is just bad design in almost any game. It's not the only place these Pokemon are obtainable, but still, there are also a few Pokemon that absolutely break the game, which is kind of funny for a bit, before you realize this game is no longer interesting because there is no challenge. And when a game forces you not to do something in order to make the game interesting, that's not good game design. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet realized that putting Shedinja in the game would be a bad idea. Did that not occur to them, or did they do it on purpose because this is the content game? Either way, it means that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet put more thought into something than this game did. As for the story, predictably, it's just Kanto again, but with some slight tweaks. Team Rocket is now trying to make a triple fusion, so they can take over the world, I think. And they also need Moonstones for that, which is why they're in Mount Moon in the beginning, because God forbid any of the story beats be in different places. Team Rocket actually having a defined goal is at the very least a leg up over the actual Kanto games, but it's also the same leg up used in every Pokemon game since Hoenn, because it's obviously about the region's legendaries. The only interesting parts are Zap Volcano, which was a pretty cool deep cut since it was taken from the manga, and the Mount Silver bit at the very end, which was also pretty cool, and completely unique. Pretty cool in an overindulgent Pokemon fan way, but still pretty cool. And I guess there's also the XIII plotline, which goes absolutely nowhere. He's set up to be an antagonist, which is interesting, but then he's just not the one anymore. Yup. And then there's also the Celadon Sewers bit, because they changed it from the game corner. Now it's the Celadon Sewers. I didn't really like that one. Like, there's nothing egregious with the gameplay, but like, I do not like the vibes. I don't get why they changed this and not the Silph building. The Silph building is still bad. It's still bad. And outside of that, yeah, they didn't really do anything interesting. It's all incredibly safe, played out, and only really serves to just be a backdrop for the sprites. It's all just an excuse plot, and it's barely even an original one. And as for its presentation, outside of the sprites, since again it's about the actual game, well, it looks passable. Most of the time. You know, except for anytime land meets water when there are glaring tiling errors that you'll never be able to unsee, or anytime there are diagonal stairs because it's almost guaranteed they're going to be jank, but never the same jank twice, even though you could just copy and paste the same few scripts for 1 high and 2 high stairs, when the female character sprite is running because it's half an inch off the ground, or anytime you run at all because the sprite uses the fire red leaf green running speed, the base speed that comes with essentials, which doesn't work with Gen 5 sprites, being that after 10 years, Chardub never learned how to change one number, or anytime you go into battle, because the type icons are blatantly a completely different pixel size to everything else, or when the music changes from one track to another, because half the time they're taken from 2 completely different games with no cohesion, when the music doesn't change from one track to another, it plays long enough to hear the music loop, which it doesn't, because all of it is downloaded from YouTube. That's probably one of the first things you notice about this game. I just assumed you couldn't loop music in Essentials. No, they didn't even bother! Or the 10,000 one-off anomalies, like this kid being a camper for some reason, which would be weird in any other game, but in this game, barely even a thing you notice because everything else is so jank. Or this guy somehow being a half step outside the rest of reality, which I don't even know how you do on purpose, let alone on accident. or the inexplicable glaring typos in the starter cutscene, or the thing you see anytime you start a new save file, which looks and sounds like this. But other than those little nitpicks, it's fine. It's just fine. Listen, I know game design is hard, and that polish shouldn't be your main focus 100% of the time. I know that because I do it myself, and let me tell you, you have to try to not try this hard. Especially after almost 10 years of development and updates. Yeah, this game started releasing in 2015. I don't want to hear any excuses saying, but the game is massively bloated, so maybe there was less time to focus on polish. Yes, the game is massively bloated, but 10 years of development is a lot to not fix any of this, and from what I can tell, the game's map and story have been complete since 2020. Hell, there's even jank that's been added. The type icons weren't even in the game back when I cared about it. But let's be honest here. The game is not what matters, because if it did, it wouldn't have taken 8 years to blow up. The game is just an excuse to get to the sprites, which you can just see on infinitefusiondex.com, and some of you might have even consciously treated it like that, because I definitely did even when I liked the game. A game that is a glorified wiki-walk cannot be called a good game, and that's why I went on this tangent to begin with. The only reason the game got so popular is because it built a brand revolving around the sprites, most of which you will never see, and nothing else. The brand made them, not artists. An artist made them, but they're all just an artist. And on some level, that's by design. You know how I can tell? There's literally a channel on the Pokémon Infinite Fusion Discord titled Fusions, a channel that's mostly about talking about sprites that someone else made, that just happened to be in the game. They're not even called sprites, they're just called fusions. The sprites are taken for granted. Remember way earlier when I gave examples of sprites that were in the game? All of them were from spriters who had pulled out. This official banner says more than words ever could. And guess what? The Reshiram Gardevoir, Magikarp Steelix, and the Jirachi Machamp are from Rush, and the Kling Kling Volcarona is from Husk. And that's just from what I could find in this Where's Waldo image. There's nothing that's actually from the game itself because it doesn't have an identity of its own. And that's why this is so damning. He knows how hollow this game is when standing on its own. The game would look so much worse without them, because it's just a 5 out of 10 at best. Pokémon Infinite Fusion, on its base level, is a game that only works because it doesn't really have to do anything, and it has been coursing on that for way too long. It doesn't have to be anything other than safe, because nothing but the sprites actually matter. But as we've seen, the developers have little to no respect for those that actually make them. The people that arguably actually made the damn game for them. Conclusion! Yeah, this all sucks! I could make a whole point here about how shitty people are about artists and credit in general, but I kind of already have, and you've already heard that like 1,000 times before and are exhausted about it because it's just that widespread. And I don't really have anything interesting to add on that front, and you've definitely already watched this video. Fuck it! Go watch that instead, because I'm bad at conclusions. I'm not repeating everything I just said, but shorter. You're not a goldfish. I do what I want. Santa Claus isn't real.